Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is already set to bring a hefty dose of horror to the franchise, while Moon Knight and Blade are also right at home in that genre. But don't expect Marvel to stop there. The House of Ideas is home to plenty of iconic supernatural heroes and villains, plenty of which are more than capable of anchoring their own MCU feature. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture Comics, and here are 10 supernatural characters who will dominate MCU Phase 5. Number 10. Black Knight. Game of Thrones' Kit Harington will portray the Dane Whitman incarnation of Black Knight in Chloe Zhao's Eternals movie, which will see Jack Kirby's cosmic gods interact with humanity following the events of Avengers Endgame. Little is known about the plot for Eternals or even how it will use Black Knight, but given Whitman's status as an Avenger in the comics, as well as Harrington's own popularity following Game of Thrones, one would assume that Marvel won't want this to be the character's sole on-screen appearance. Black Knight has all the potential there to be a key part of the next generation of Avengers, and while he's set to make his live-action debut in a cosmic film, he's still a supernatural character at heart. Whitman wields the Ebony Blade in the comics, a sword enchanted by Merlin himself. He also wears mystical armor and rides a magical winged horse called Strider into battle, which is obviously incredibly cool. Number 9. Dormammu. Multiverse of Madness will feature both Benedict Cumberbatch's Sorcerer Supreme and Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch, but the main antagonist is still yet to be confirmed. Many have theorized that because the film will delve into the multiverse, that Nightmare will be involved in some form or another, but every Doctor Strange fan knows there's no escaping Dormammu. The Lord of the Dark Dimension made only a brief appearance in the first Doctor Strange film, but you can bet he'll be back with a vengeance for the sequel, and especially so if it follows the comics by making Baron Mordo his willing disciple. Dormammu is one of the most powerful and feared cosmic and supernatural entities in the Marvel mythos, and while it's more than likely another villain will take the lead in the Multiverse of Madness, you can be sure to expect the character to stick around for Phase 5. Number 8. JERICHO DRUMM. It's still way too soon to be discussing potential legacy replacements for Doctor Strange, given the character only first appeared on screen midway through Phase 3, but it's also never a bad time to remind people that he isn't the only person to have held the title of Sorcerer Supreme. There was, of course, the Ancient One before him, but other characters have also become the Master of the Mystic Arts both before and after Strange assumed the mantle, including, most recently, Loki. But there was one supernatural hero who was able to succeed Strange, even if it was for a brief while, and that was JERICHO DRUMM. DRUMM is another powerful sorcerer who could join Strange in a third film, having taken on an increasingly prominent role in the Marvel Universe and the comics over the last decade. He's a powerful sorcerer who's probably in need of a bit of an update as far as his powers and superhero namesake are concerned, but he'd be a great presence to have in the MCU all the same. Number 7. WICCAN. One of the bigger questions to dominate WandaVision revolved around the fate of Wanda Maximoff's two children, Tommy and Billy. Wanda created her children using a combination of her own chaos magic and the Mind Stone, and even though Vision was shown to disintegrate outside of the Hex early on in the series, viewers held out hope that Tommy and Billy would make it through and emerge on the other side as Speed and Wiccan, two key members of the Young Avengers in the comics. Of course, WandaVision ended a little more tragically than that. Tommy and Billy disappeared along with Vision once Wanda destroyed the Hex, offering a slight twist on the even grimmer fate that befalls them in the comics where Mephisto absorbs them back into his soul. However, the series also ended on a glimmer of hope for Wanda, showing her reading the Darkhold and hearing the voices of her children crying out for her. Tommy and Billy were both reincarnated in the comics and would rediscover their relation to Wanda, but it remains to be seen how things will play out in the MCU. One would expect Wanda's search for her two sons to be a key element in the Multiverse of Madness, and given how the MCU looks set to assemble its own version of the Young Avengers in upcoming projects, their chances of returning are really positive. Of the two sons though, only one is supernatural, and that's Billy, who becomes the superhero Wiccan in the comics. Wiccan is a mystic just like his mother and an iconic gay character of the Marvel Universe. An older version of the hero would be a great fit for the MCU going forward. Number 6. Mephisto. The character pretty much everyone is already bored of before he's made an appearance in the MCU, Mephisto dominated online discussion throughout WandaVision as fans desperately tried to unravel the mystery behind Westview. It wasn't as if his name was plucked out of thin air though. The character was instrumental in the very story arc where Wanda created and then lost her 2 children, and the ambiguous nature of the series' opening episodes automatically lent themselves well to healthy speculation. Mephisto is yet to make his MCU debut, but it still feels like a matter of when and not if it will happen. The character has too great a history for it not to, but more important is that he bridges the cosmic side of things with the supernatural, having been involved with Thanos in the comics as well as Asgard and the wider multiverse. He's the catalyst who could bring about all of the MCU's forthcoming supernatural characters together, and in one instance, maybe even bring one into existence. Number 5. Doctor Strange. Of course, Marvel's new wave of supernatural stories wouldn't be complete without a figure at the center, and the likelihood remains that said figure will be Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch's Sorcerer Supreme has featured in 4 MCU projects to date, and is already being geared up to take on a larger role in Phase 4. The character will be taking on the mentor role recently vacated by Tony Stark in the upcoming Spider-Man No Way Home, which we also know will involve the multiverse, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will, as the title implies, presumably expand upon those elements in greater, more horrific detail. Strange has always been in the middle of the Marvel Universe in one way or another, assisting the Avengers and Defenders as a member of both groups and all the various dimensions that exist within the cosmos on his own. There's no reason to suspect that won't be the case on screen in the coming years either, unless of course Cumberbatch grows tired of the role, which doesn't seem to be the case for the time being. Number 4. Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff is a character who's been through a lot of retcons in the comics since her debut, so it was pretty funny to see WandaVision mirror that journey by introducing a retcon of its own. The series finally honoured the character with her actual title and costume, and in the process cemented her as a key part of the MCU's growing supernatural contingent. As with Doctor Strange, the suggestion currently is that Wanda will have a big part to play as the MCU charts a new course into the mystical corners of Marvel's source material. WandaVision introduced so many new things involving the character, including her destiny as the Scarlet Witch, her children, and the prospect she may yet be reunited with Vision at some point, and it's doubtful all will be resolved in Strange's own film when that drops in 2022. Whether on Disney Plus or on the big screen, expect Wanda to be right in the middle of whatever Marvel Studios has planned once Phase 4 wraps up. Number 3. Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider's had a bit of a turbulent history in live action over the last couple of decades. Nicolas Cage, and bless him truly and deeply for genuinely loving that character, had 2 unfortunate turns as Johnny Blaze in 2007 and 2011 respectively, and while Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yielded better results with Gabriel Luna as Robbie Reyes, a spin-off series involving the character was canned shortly after its announcement in 2019. There's still a definite chance that Luna's Reyes could have a part to play in the MCU's future, and although Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans are no doubt hoping for that outcome, it might be time for Marvel to start again and introduce another rider to the on-screen canon in Danny Ketch. You see, Johnny Blaze might be Marvel's most iconic rider in terms of big screen appearances, but Ketch is actually the longest running character to bear the spirit of vengeance and the one who most influenced the 2 big screen adaptations to date. It would be great to see him in the MCU sporting the gnarly blue flame skull introduced during Simon Spurrier and Javier Saltera's run on the character, and given he's such an icon of Marvel Comics, you have to think a big screen revival can't be far. Number 2. Moon Knight. Moon Knight, who was first created by Doug Mensch and Don Perlin in 1975's Werewolf by Night number 32, is set to star in their own TV show on Disney Plus sometime in the future, where he'll be portrayed by Oscar Isaac. The character has dissociative identity disorder in the comics, and that's visible in his crime fighting, where he's assumed different vigilante personas over the years. At the character's core, though, is a heavy focus on the supernatural. Moon Knight is blessed with his powers thanks to the Egyptian moon god Khonshu, who at various stages has either been a legitimate cosmic presence or a figment of Mark's own imagination, and the character has often come up against supernatural foes, most famously Dracula, in an encounter that's nowhere near as wonderful as the meme that implies the vampire owes him money, which I really hope he does in live action. In terms of the character's wider connections to the Marvel Universe, Spectre has been both a member of the West Coast Avengers and the Secret Avengers, so don't expect him to fight supernatural threats all on his own forever. And number 1. Blade. Without Blade, you don't have the superhero movie boom of the early 2000s. That also means that, without Blade, it's highly doubtful you have the MCU. If Tim Burton's Batman laid the foundations to the all-encompassing monolithic comic book movie juggernaut that grew to consume everyone and everything, then Blade was the film that took those foundations and set to work actually building something. That in itself is really important because, aside from Spider-Man, the MCU has never really had to reckon with such a hefty cinematic legacy. I know this is Blade and that Blade is literally just Wesley Snipes being the best while Guillermo del Toro does his thing with vampires and stuff, but those first 2 films are a genuine seminal moment in the evolution of comic book movies. Tackling Blade is also unique because Wesley Snipes was campaigning to reprise the role as recently as 2018, and that fans were behind him to do just that. Of course, Marvel opted to go with another talent instead, and one that intimates the studio are more than capable of honouring the legacy of those earlier films: Oscar-winning actor Mahershala Ali. Ali's casting is great news, and the return of Blade is sure to be a highlight of not only Phase 4, but Phase 5 too. Marvel is assembling a new group of Avengers, only this time, things are going to get way more spooky. And those were 10 supernatural characters who look set to dominate the MCU's future. Let me know your favourite supernatural Marvel characters down in the comments below, and who you think should be next in line for a big screen appearance. Once you've done that, it would be great if you could like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to What Culture Comics so you don't miss another upload going forward. I've been Ewan, catch my ramblings on Twitter at EwanRuinsThings, and I will see you next time. Bye!